The miracle is not to walk on water. The miracle is to walk on the green earth in the present moment, to appreciate the peace and beauty that are available now. Peace is around us, in the world, in nature, and within us. It is in our bodies and our spirits. Once we learn to touch this peace, we will be healed and transformed. It is not a matter of faith. It is a matter of practice. Our true home is in the present moment. To live in the present moment is a miracle. These words from Thich Nhat Hanh are a strange thing to say at the beginning of Advent. For Christians, this is a time of waiting and anticipation. But as Unitarian Universalists, we may ask, what are we waiting for? For peace on earth, goodwill to all? For the reconciliation of all inequities? For God to bless us, everyone? For the arrival of angels singing glory, glory? See, as Unitarian Universalists, who historically have had a major hand in the invention, the carols, the traditions, and stories of American Christmas, our faith does not actually rely on a future outcome at all. See, Universalism tells us that if a heaven exists, all of us will be there. I mean, everybody, every single soul. I know, it's annoying. But there it is. And our Unitarianism tells us, well, God is not bifurcated into three parts, but is instead a single creative spirit that runs throughout all life, making it all sacred, all worthy. Our mystic and our humanist strands of Unitarian Universalism weave together during times such as these and invite us to experience the blessing of the world around us as a sacred source of our faith. As the poet said, what we need is here. And the truth is, this sermon was easier to give a few days ago. The truth is, I began writing this sermon during the truce between the Israeli government and Hamas. It was November 24th through November 30th. And now the moment has passed. But for 6 days, the bombing ceased in Gaza. And during one of those days, I think it's important that we know that on November 26th, Majed al-Dura took advantage of the pause in fighting in Gaza to marry his fiancée. A crowd of thousands cheered him after the ceremony was performed in a concrete United Nations school compound in central Gaza. The schoolyard rang with drumming and joyful chants. This compound has become home to people from all over the Gaza Strip who have fled from Israeli bombardments. Al-Jarrah, who is 23, he had been planning a more conventional wedding, of course, with his extended family, a henna party for the women, and good food. His fiancée, Sarah Abu Toha, dreamed of wearing a white dress with elaborate embellishments. In the end, she wore a black prayer gown. Their honeymoon was spent in a classroom. It never occurred to us that we would get married like this, but this is war, said Al-Dura. We will escape from war for times of joy, he said. The couple planned to have a proper wedding if they survive. This is a bold example of fully inhabiting the present moment. Now, I'm sure there were other things to tend to during the 6-day peaceful pause. There were things to clean up, family to find, but instead, thousands celebrated a wedding. The moment was at hand. See, this is a high-stakes spiritual discipline of living in the present moment when it would have been easy to dwell on the horrors of the recent past or the terrible fear of the future. And the other truth is that the future calls to all of us powerfully. I mean, we often prefer to have a vacation on the horizon somewhere, or a promise of better days, or a job that we're hoping to get someday that we're working for. For many of us, the anticipation of our new UUCA campus that we are in now was powerful enough to pull us through some of the most bleak days of deep pandemic. And even that term we use so often, that term beloved community, is a future-forward term. Martin Luther King's concept of the beloved community, which is, by the way, not simply a group of friends who share a faith, no. It is a true community of equals where injustices are reconciled and finances are equitably distributed. This concept of his relies on a future to work for, a toiling in the service of the kingdom of heaven that will surely come soon, someday. Someday draws us forward as an act of hope in and of itself. And as a self-described futurist, I am in danger of spending a lot of the present moment lost in a someday. But there's an aspect of living too far ahead that creates a life of relentless striving. The goalposts are constantly moved ahead, and then your only chance at peace is to imagine Sisyphus happy, I guess. But the relentless pursuit of the better future, well, it keeps us working ourselves to the bone for that day to come. And this can easily happen in congregational life, especially if you think back to the year 2021, when you're trying to gather the spirit in an office park with little more than just a few AV technicians. I mean, I love you, but it was really just us. You know, it can be a challenging discipline to sincerely look at the present situation and call it good. But there were good things. There were beautiful and powerful elements of those services on YouTube from the office park. We sought each other out. We reached toward each other. We innovated our connectivity in so many ways. And it was often beautiful, raw, and honest. And often the service did hold great wisdom. And then there's that other temptation, toxic nostalgia. That time when we can fall prey to our false memories of better, simpler times. Anyone? The unreliable memories of the past are a seductive trap when we are dealing with record inflation, climate anxiety, and crisis, or our own aging or ailing bodies, our mental health or acuity lagging. The allure of better days behind us beckons powerfully to our heart's deepest longings. For some of us, settling into this new mission and ministry and era of UUCA has felt overwhelming and strange at times. Perhaps deep down in our heart of hearts, we thought there would be these invisible giant hands that would pluck up the UUCA that existed at the Cliff Valley property, hold it aloft, and gently bring it down in a new location on North Druid Hills Road. But that was never the promise of our mission nor our vision for this next phase of UUCA. See, in 2020, we launched a capital campaign, and the congregation also rewrote its core mission, values, and ends. The Board of Trustees held listening circles. They gathered feedback from all of you during the months of 2020 when we were all home and we had plenty of time to consider the future of our faith community. We transitioned then from a congregation that had focused on nurturing the individual's search for truth and meaning joining together for social justice, into a congregation that now, what? Transforms lives through taking courageous action and making soulful connection. And this called us to think of our ministry in new and expansive ways. So we established a new ethos of radical welcome, wanting to spread the good news of Unitarian Universalism and center the people who really need it and haven't found it yet. People who are under attack out there, people who are suffering and struggling and desperately in need of a congregation that would never damn them to hell for their identity or their loving. And we understood then ourselves to belong not just to us, the people who have already found this place of comfort and love, but to the people who are just now finding us, or who have not found us yet, or the people who have found us just today. In an effort to grow our families and children, we brought in more elements for children, like a time for all ages every Sunday, and a movement prayer that has now become a vital expression of faith for so many of us who made it through the pandemic together. The movement prayer, developed by me and Reverend Sarah York, UU minister, is a way to humbly embody our faith and to express that faith beyond words through motion and connection with our own bodies moving through space. And the children were already doing the movement prayer in their worship service almost every Sunday as a way to calm their bodies and to transition from that wild ride to church into a space of spiritual groundedness. And when the pandemic arrived, I worried most about the people who lived alone, who lacked the soul medicine of physical touch. For some of us, the movement prayer, that moment when we bring the gifts of the Spirit unto ourselves with gratitude and breathe and smile, that was the only time in some people's week when they might experience a hug. And in this moment we are in now, the children often lead us in the movement prayer, and so we are humbled before them, receiving their spiritual leadership in our midst. And mostly you are invited into this as an experience of deep reverence, deep embodiment, and deep calm together. And if there is a Sunday when you're just not feeling it, you are invited to remain seated and experience what happens when a room full of people pray with their bodies. You might experience their joy, or their sighs, or their tears. The experience is yours, and it is also ours. See, the heart is a big tent. This faith is a big tent. This congregation is a big tent. We will find ways to meet a truly diverse community's spiritual needs. And it will only be enough if you come to this holy hour, to this sacred, maybe a little more than an hour today, but we will try, to this sacred, beloved space, seeking enough, not just for you, but for all. And while we may draw on hope from the past, from joys and connections we once made, and we may call forth hope for the future, for possibilities and vision we have yet to carry through, this moment, the one we are in right now, is the one that matters most. This moment, the one we are in right now and now. There are times when the mystery of the unknown future is unbearable. Sometimes the pain of the past is outrunnable. In those times, rather than wait for the best yet to come, let us fully inhabit the beauty of the present moment, like fully inhabit it without filters, without phones and cameras, without capturing it at all. Just let it be sometimes. This is life. This is how you live life, fully embracing the present and letting it be enough. Because people are finding this congregation for the very first time right now. This is the congregation they are joining today. And your life is finding you right now. This is the moment you are meeting. When a doctor's visit raises more questions than answers, the anxiety that follows is about potential future outcomes. We naturally traveled forward in time to the worst case scenario, and that is understandable. When we experience trauma in our past, we can become stuck in that moment. We can disassociate too much from the present moment, which can prevent healing from the past trauma, and that is understandable. So, how do we meet the moment? This is our responsibility, not just as a bystander or a consumer of everything that happens to us, but as someone who takes responsibility for themselves with self-awareness and meeting each moment. And I don't normally go to a lot of New Age sources, but I did have to talk about Eckhart Tolle today, New Age philosopher who writes about the power of now. And he offers a practice of asking yourself throughout the day this question: what kind of a relationship am I having with the present moment? What kind of a relationship am I having with the present moment? This practice, he says, takes your attention into your inner space, into your emotional field, and into your mind. Is my mind denying the present moment? Am I in a state of stress? And what is stress? Tolle says stress is normal in our civilization, but what it basically means is that you would rather be in a different moment. You would rather not be in this moment. And the anxiety is to try and get out of this present moment. Stress means you want to be already finished with the thing that you're doing while you're still doing it. You would just rather be finished, or while you're traveling towards some place, you would just rather already be there. So you ask yourself, what kind of a relationship am I having with the present moment? With the long drive, with the journey? And each moment holds good and bad narratives. Krista Tippett says the other spiritual discipline and way to stay grounded is that we must take seriously what is happening in the world and what the headlines are reflecting, but know that it is never the full story of our time. It is never the last word on what we are capable of. It is not the whole human story. And what we have to take is from that narrative, we have to go beyond the headline and know that there are always good people. There are always healing initiatives going on. There was always resistance to terror and to violence. There is a narrative of healing and hope. And just as a discipline, we have to take in both the headlines that are designed, that are counting on sharing what is catastrophic, corrupt, and failing, and know the whole story that also contains the healing efforts. This is how we flex the hope muscle. Hope is a muscle. Hope is always a choice. Krista Tippett writes, it is a vigorous choice to see what is wrong and what needs healing and needs repair and needs our attention, and to keep our hearts and imaginations and our energy oriented towards what are we building, what we are creating, and what we are moving towards. So when I began writing this sermon, Israeli troops and Hamas had negotiated a pause in the violence. I was prepared to come to you to drink deep at the river of hope flowing within that pause, but then the moment passed, and now we are in a different moment, and violence returns to the region, unrest returns to our hearts, and pain and horror returns to the headlines. But the challenge of this moment is to still find the hope. This is the Buddhist lesson of impermanence. This moment, the moment of violence, shall also pass. The worst is not the end. There will be another moment and another one. Like a snowflake melting on the tip of the tongue, we will taste the recent memory of the peaceful pause we had just a couple days ago in Gaza. We will remember the breathing out of the collective psyche of the world. And in that memory, we will know we can have it once again. We can have it once again. The worst is not the end. When the moment is unbearable, the hope rests in the knowledge of its passing. The good moment will pass by, as will the bad, and so we must experience each moment for the complex gift, the blessing that it is. What we need is here, right now. In this quiet moment, as we sit together and wonder and let the feeling of our togetherness wash over us. Our true home is in the present moment. To live in the present moment, that is the miracle.